Every predator you have ever been afraid of, the great white shark, the saltwater crocodile, the grizzly bear, would have been a mid-tier meal in the world that existed before us. A fish with no teeth but jaws that could crush steel ruled the oceans for 20 million years. A millipede as long as a car had no natural predators on land. A shark so powerful it rammed whales from below before biting them in half. None of these animals are alive today, but all of them were real. And somehow, the deeper scientists dig into the fossil record, every new discovery manages to be stranger and more disturbing than the last. Over 99% of all species that have ever existed are now extinct, and most left behind no trace at all. So, what exactly has been living on this planet for the last half-billion years? And why does it keep getting creepier the further back you go? You need to go way further back than the dinosaurs. The real beginning of complex animal life kicked off during the Cambrian period, about 520 million years ago. Before that, Earth was basically a planet of slime. Microbial mats, simple organisms, nothing with eyes, teeth, jaws, or limbs. Then, in a burst so sudden that scientists still argue about what triggered it, complex animals showed up almost everywhere at once. This event is called the Cambrian explosion, and it produced creatures so alien-looking that when paleontologists first found their fossils, they literally could not figure out what they were looking at. One animal called hallucigenia was so strange that scientists reconstructed it upside down and backwards for decades. They thought its protective spines were walking legs. They mistook its legs for tentacles. They even mixed up its head and its tail. The original researcher named it hallucigenia because the creature was so bizarre it seemed like a hallucination. It was not until 2015 that a team at the University of Cambridge finally sorted out which end was which, discovering a tiny mouth ringed with needle-like teeth that nobody had ever noticed before. But hallucigenia was small and weird. The real nightmare of the Cambrian was Anomalocaris. The name translates to abnormal shrimp, which might be the biggest understatement in the history of science. This animal grew up to a meter long. That might not sound like much until you realize that almost everything else alive at the time measured in millimeters. In a world full of tiny worms and soft-bodied blobs, Anomalocaris was the equivalent of a great white shark swimming through a koi pond. It had two massive spiked arms at the front of its head for grabbing prey. Its mouth was a circular ring of 32 overlapping plates that worked like a garbage disposal. And its eyes were absolutely enormous. A 2011 study published in Nature by John Patterson at the University of New England in Australia confirmed that each eye contained at least 16,000 hexagonal lenses. That gave it vision 30 times sharper than trilobites, which were previously considered to have the best eyes of the era. This animal could spot prey from across the seafloor, chase it down using undulating flaps along its body, and snatch it with those spiked arms before the target even knew what was happening. 500 million years ago, the first apex predator on Earth was already a nearly perfect killing machine. And the craziest part? When Anomalocaris was first discovered in 1892, the arms were classified as shrimp. The mouth was classified as a jellyfish. The body was classified as a sea sponge. Three separate species that turned out to be one single animal. It took nearly a century before anyone put the pieces together. Scientists literally could not imagine that something like it had ever existed. But Anomalocaris was just the opening act. Because about 120 million years later, the ocean produced something far worse. During the Devonian period, roughly 380 million years ago, the dominant predator in the sea was an armored fish called Dunkleosteus. And Dunkleosteus makes the modern great white look like a goldfish. This animal grew up to 10 meters long and weighed around 4 metric tons. The entire front half of its body was covered in thick, bony plates. It was a living tank with a mouth, But the truly disturbing feature was its jaws. Dunkleosteus had no teeth. Instead, it had two pairs of razor-sharp bony blades that protruded from its upper and lower jaws, forming a cutting mechanism that worked exactly like a guillotine. And those blades never went dull. Every time the jaw closed, the plates rubbed against each other, sharpening themselves automatically. The animal carried self-sharpening weapons inside its own mouth for its entire life. Engineers dream about building cutting tools this efficient. Nature did it 380 million years ago inside the skull of a fish. Titanoboa lived like a modern anaconda, lurking partially submerged in warm rivers, waiting for prey. But its prey included the crocodilians that shared its habitat. Fossils of giant turtles and primitive crocodile-like reptiles were found right alongside the snake's remains, and researchers believe they were regular meals. The animal that most creatures alive today consider the ultimate ambush predator, the crocodile, was for Titanoboa just another item on the menu. And if you think the oceans got any safer during this time, they did not. They got worse. Much worse. Megalodon, the giant shark that lived from about 23 million to 3.6 million years ago, carried the strongest bite force of any animal that has ever existed. Full stop. A 2008 study led by Stephen Rowe estimated it generated between 108,514 and 182,201 newtons of force. The largest great white shark ever tested produced about 18,216 newtons. Megalodon was roughly 10 times more powerful. Its bite exceeded even Tyrannosaurus rex by a wide margin. A 2025 study involving 29 fossil shark experts estimated it could reach lengths of up to 24.3 meters. That is roughly 4 times the size of the largest great white ever recorded. Its jaws opened wide enough to swallow a human standing upright without touching the sides. Fossil whale bones have been found with megalodon tooth marks carved into them. Some still have the broken tips of megalodon teeth embedded inside the bone. Other whale vertebrae show compression fractures from being rammed at extreme speed before the killing bite landed. This shark did not just eat whales, it hunted them strategically, smashing into them from below to cripple their movement, then circling back to tear them apart. And Megalodon was not even alone in that ocean. Leviathan melvillei, a prehistoric sperm whale named after the biblical Leviathan and the author of Moby Dick, lived in the same waters and grew to similar sizes. But unlike modern sperm whales that mostly eat squid, Leviathan had massive teeth on both jaws, some over 36 centimeters long. It hunted other whales. Two apex predators of that size sharing the same ocean is something the modern world has never seen and probably never will again. Back on land, things were no better. After the dinosaurs vanished, terror birds like Forus racos ruled South America for millions of years. They stood roughly 3 meters tall, about the height of a basketball hoop. Entirely flightless, but they did not need wings. Their weapon was a massive hooked beak that they used like a hatchet, striking downward with enough force to crack the skulls of mammals, small horses, and anything else unlucky enough to cross their path. Some species could run at 60 miles per hour. A human at full sprint tops out around 15. There was no outrunning these animals. They were faster than racehorses. And the last of the saber-toothed cats, Smilodon, survived until just 11,700 years ago. Early humans in North America walked the same land as these animals. Smilodon had canine teeth up to 18 centimeters long, and, according to fossil evidence from the La Brea tar pits, studied by Dr. Emily Lindsay, hunted in packs. A solitary big cat with 7-inch fangs is bad enough. A coordinated pack of them working together is something out of a nightmare, and it happened on the same continent where millions of people live right now. There is a pattern running through every single era of this story. The further back you go in time, the less the rules of modern biology apply. Oxygen levels were different. Continents sat in different positions. Competition came from animals that no longer exist, and without those familiar limits, Life built body plans and killing strategies that seem flat out impossible by the standards of the world we know. Guillotine jawed fish that sharpened their own blades, car sized millipedes with crab eye stalks, sharks that rammed whales from below at full speed, snakes so thick they could not fit through a doorway. Modern humans have been around for roughly 300,000 years. Dunkleosteus ruled the oceans for 20 million. Megalodon lasted 20 million. Sharks as a group have survived for over 450 million years and lived through 5 mass extinctions that nearly sterilized the planet. Every single time, the dominant species was wiped out. And every single time, something stranger rose to take its place. We are newcomers on a planet that has been producing monsters for over 500 million years. And scientists estimate that only about 1% of all species that ever lived have been preserved as fossils. For every Dunkleosteus, every Megalodon, every Titanoboa we know about, there could be dozens of equally terrifying animals still buried in rock. Every year, paleontologists crack open new stones and pull out creatures that rewrite the textbooks. The fossil record is not a finished book. It is barely a rough draft, missing chapters we may never read. The deeper you explore, the creepier it gets, and the digging is far from over. If prehistoric animals blew your mind, let us know which one creeped you out the most in the comments. Want more wild stories from the ancient world? Just tap the next video and keep exploring with us. Thanks for watching.